So here's what we're going to do first. You will notice that there's a graph. Quadratics are so popular in maths and admaths that you need to know almost every single thing about a quadratic, not just being able to solve a quadratic. You have to be able to, draw quadratics on graphs. If the graph is already drawn for you, you have to learn to interpret the graph. Now, here's the thing about any quadratic. When you draw any quadratic in the world, you're going to get one of the two shapes. When you draw it, you're either going to get a kind of U shape, which a lot of people call a smiley face, right? Or when you draw a quadratic, you can get the opposite, a kind of rainbow shape, and some people call it the sad face. Now, obviously, these shapes have special names. The smiley face is usually called a minimum graph or a minimum curve. The point is the word minimum. The sad face is called the opposite. That's called a maximum. Now, it just so happens today that when we drew this quadratic, I already used a computer program and I drew it. Today, we got what? A sad face. Now, we're going to show you how to interpret this graph. First of all, I want everyone to quickly use the quadratic formula, not the factorization method. I want you to use the quadratic formula and solve that quadratic for me and send the answers on the chat. Right? You're getting it? Remember, we have 15 plus 2x minus x squared. Remember, minus x squared is the same thing as minus 1x squared. No examiner is going to put in the 1 for you. So whoever touching x squared is a. So that means a is minus 1. B is positive 2 because whoever is touching regular boring x is 2. And the item without x is what? C. So I think some of you all mixed up the A, the B, and the C based on the answers you are sending. Right? So all you have to do is go to the formula here and substitute out the letters with the corresponding values. I'll just help you out a little bit here. How it's the first question for the day. Number A is minus 1, and don't forget that minus there. And C is how much? 15, and A is minus 1. Right, so I'm hoping that you worked out the discriminant properly. The discriminant is this green cloud here. Right. So I'll put that answer there just now. Right. Right, so we get 64 for the discriminant. So this is what we end up with. Minus 2 plus or minus, well, the square root of 64 is 8. And we are dividing by, and this is where few people made the mistake. You're divided by minus 2 because the underneath here is minus 1. So minus 2 by 2 is minus 2. So remember, we're supposed to get 2 answers. So to get the 2 answers, we say minus 2 plus 8. Make sure it's in brackets. Last week I stressed on those brackets. And then we divide by minus 2. And to get the next answer, it's minus 2 minus 8 divided by minus 2. And I believe that when we do this, we are going to get negative 3 and positive 5. Make sure you have the signs correct as well. Some of you all will have it wrong side, like you will have the minus sign by the 5 by mistake, and the 3 will be positive. That's 100% wrong, right? You won't get the marks for that in the exam, right? So we just use the quadratic formula And whenever we use the quadratic formula, and it's better known as solving. Now, here's the thing, right? I made a slight, not an error. I just forgot to mention one small thing. Whenever we are trying to solve a quadratic, well, we're already supposed to scratch off the letter y and put it equal to what? 0. Now, I think I mentioned that last week, that whenever you're trying to solve a quadratic, it's really, really important that one side of the equal sign is always equal to 0. Why must it always be equal to 0? There's a really good reason. I won't be touching on that now, probably in a couple of weeks' time, because I don't want to sidetrack. Whenever we are solving a quadratic, like I said, most of the times we get two answers. You all notice something? Look at the graph. Let me zoom in here a little bit. Look at the quadratic. You all notice that it cuts the x-axis at +5, and it also cuts the x-axis. Well, this is -3. I know the minus sign is kind of hard to see. It also cuts at -3. That's no coincidence. Whenever you are solving a quadratic, I know solving is a fancy word, right? But you know what solving really means? Solving a quadratic really means where the graph will cut the x-axis. And that's really important to know. You know why? Sometimes in the exam, the examiner will say solve. So fine, everyone can solve a quadratic. But suppose he gives the instructions slightly different now. He says, for this quadratic, find out where it cuts the x-axis. But that's the same exact question. That's the same thing as solving a quadratic. So everyone take down this note. Solving a quadratic means where the graph cuts the x-axis. All right, put a little exclamation mark there to make it look important. But knowing where the quadratic cuts the x-axis is not the only important thing about a quadratic. There are plenty other things we need to know about a quadratic. For example, this quadratic is a rainbow shape, a maximum shape. All maximum graphs will have a highest point. Pretend this is a mountain and you're climbing the mountain. Eventually, you will reach the top of the mountain. Now, the top of the mountain looks like about here, to my best average, right? So here's instead of calling it the top of the mountain, we could say that's the highest point on the mountain or the maximum height of the mountain, or there's a technical word. You see the highest point? You notice how the graph is going upwards. And then after the highest point, it starts to go downwards. That point is also called the turning point, right? The turning point in today's graph is the same thing as the maximum point, the highest point. Do you all think you can approximate the values, the x and y coordinates of the highest point? Let me zoom in a little bit. I would like you all to do your best to approximate or estimate the x and y value at the turning point. Now, obviously, you're using your eyes. Whenever you're trying to pull off information off a graph, the most you'll be able to do is estimate. So estimate it for me, please. All right. Now, if I had to do it in the exam, like I just said, the x coordinate looking like 1 for sure. I have no problem saying 1. Now, this one looking like 16, because if here's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Now, remember, we are just what? Estimating. How do we know it's exactly 16? For all you know, it's 16.01, 16.1, 16.25. The only way to get the exact answer is by calculation. So whenever we're trying to find the turning point, all turning points in a quadratic will have an x coordinate and it will always have a y coordinate. Believe it or not, what I'm about to show you comes in two subjects. It could come in regular boring maths, or it can also come in add maths. To calculate the x coordinate, use this formula. Minus b divided by 2a. Please don't forget this minus sign in the formula, which means, I just say if b was negative, the formula comes with a free minus sign. So 2 minus signs sometimes is touch to give you what? A positive. To calculate the y coordinate, you use this scary looking formula. 4 multiplied by a and c minus open brackets b close bracket squared, and then divide the whole thing afterwards by 4a. Be very careful about the blue formula. Do not attempt to type out the whole thing on your calculator. You will get it wrong. My advice is work out the top, write down the answer. Clear your calculator, work out the underneath, write down the answer, then divide it. So I want you all to use the orange and blue formula and tell me if you get back 1 and 16 or something close to 1 and 16. Right? Right, so on the screen, I substituted in the values, and of course, I did the working like I'm supposed to do. And it seems that I did get the same two answers, 1 and positive 16. Right? So it just so happens that this graph, our estimate, was the same thing as our calculations. But believe me, a lot of times in the exam, the estimate that you make with your eyes doesn't be 100% accurate, and you need to do calculations to verify it. Right. So memorize these two formulas, right? It's definitely not on your formula sheet for add maths or regular maths, right? That's something you have to memorize. Now, another thing you have to note is the shape of the graph, okay? Whenever you have a graph, it's either you're going to get a rainbow shape, that's the maximum or minimum. Now, there's an easy way to predict the shape of the graph, a really, really, really easy way. You just have to look at the value of A. Anytime A is positive, you will get a smiley face. But anytime A is a minus value, you will get a rainbow shape. So you notice in today's question, A was -1. So that means the shape of our graph would have obviously been a rainbow, right? So take down this note here, right? It isn't much of a note. You just have to draw the shape of the graph and put A positive. So you remember that anytime A is positive, you get a smiley face. And anytime A is a minus value, you get a frowny face. Right now, we have a lot of people are asking me to review the question. Not a problem. I have plenty more examples on the same topic in the next slide. So if you didn't catch it in the first slide, not to worry. You're going to catch it in the second slide. All right, so here we have another graph, okay? That's all. I just want to see if the other one. Let's do this one. This one here is a harder question. So here we have another quadratic. Let's just quickly identify the A, the B, and the C values. So A is obviously 2, B is +10, and C is 8. I want everyone to quickly solve this quadratic. Now, remember, when you are solving a quadratic, you are already trying to figure out where it cuts the x-axis. So we can actually predict what our answers are going to be. If we zoom in, this is our x-axis here. You will notice that it cuts the x-axis. That looks like -1. I know the writing is kind of bad there. And the other x value is -4. But I want you all to verify it by calculations. Use the quadratic formula, the minus b plus or minus formula, and prove to yourself that, hey, it really, really does cut at -1 and -4. All right, so everyone gets started on that one. And of course, when you verify it, make sure and say verified on the chat. So when you use the quadratic formula, like I said, you're already trying to figure out where it cuts the x-axis. And well, most of us verify that once again, that the formula does work. Quick question. What kind of graph is this? Is this a maximum or a minimum? Well, look back in the notes. Is that a maximum or a minimum? This is definitely a minimum, right? The smiley face. Now, a smiley face graph doesn't really have a highest point, right? Like in this example here, this one was a maximum, so it had a maximum point, and the maximum point is called the turning point. Well, in today's question, you will have a lowest point, better known as a minimum point, but this is still called a turning point. So in other words, a turning point could either be a maximum or it could be a minimum point. I want you all to try to estimate the x and y coordinates of this turning point now, which just happens to be a minimum. You use your eyes to kind of estimate it. I know I probably need to zoom in, so I want to zoom in there a little bit. Right? So I just putting down some answers that I'm seeing. Some people are saying it's the x coordinate looking like it's in between what? The -2 and the -3. So that looking close to -2.5. It's the y coordinate now. Now the y coordinate is a little below -4. So some people might say it's -4.5, -4.2. I would actually go with -4.2. That looks like a good estimate to me. Obviously, if you want to put -4.5, go ahead. Remember, when we're using our eyes, the best we could do is estimate. What we need to do now is get the exact value. And let's see who was the most correct. And to be honest, and this is the first time I'm actually doing this question. So I'm guessing just like you guys. To calculate the values of the turning point, right? We're going to use back the same two formulas. There's no difference whether it's a maximum or a minimum. It's the same exact formula. Minus b divided by 2a and 4ac minus b squared divided by 4a. Right, now let's zoom in out so you could go back to see the a, the b, and the c values. So for those who are a little confused in the first one, all I'm asking you to do is that we have the values of a, b, and c. Throw it in this formula, simplify it, and we will get the x coordinate. Take the same, the a, the b, and c values, throw it into this formula, and you will get the y coordinate. When you work out this one, you're going to get -10 divided by 4. How much is -10 divided by 4? I'm getting -2.5. So that's what I'm getting for my x coordinate. We still have to get the y coordinate. So when we go to the scary looking formula, you work out the top on your calculator, 4 by 2 by 8 minus 10 squared. On top, you get -36. And 4 by 2 is 8. So when you divide that, I am getting -4.5. So for the people who estimated minus 4.5, you had it correct. It wasn't actually minus 4.2. It was minus 4.5. So I'll just scratch off this 2 and put a 5 here. That would be the actual answer. Now, just to clear up one issue, I know the problem or the error being made by some people. Remember, when it comes to this formula, once again, do not attempt to type in the whole thing straight on a calculator. You notice I worked out the top part alone and I wrote down the answer. Then I cleared my calculator. I worked out the underneath and got that answer separately. Then I proceeded to do what? Divide the top by the underneath. All right. So based on some of the answers I'm receiving, I know that some people still went and typed in the whole thing straight on their calculator. Your calculator will misinterpret it now. Remember, the value of A tells you the shape of the graph. Today, the value of A is 2. Now, obviously, it's positive 2. The positive is understood. And anytime A is positive, you will get a smiley face, better known as a minimum graph. All right, so take a 20 seconds, take down anything you need. We're going upwards here. Look at this graph here, right? First of all, it's a little bit more scary looking than the rest because it have a whole set of minus signs, -2, -4, -9, right? Now, the theory is still the same, whether it have plenty minus, plenty positive, the theory is still the same. But let's just identify the A, the B, and the C values, right? A is supposed to be -2, B is supposed to be -4, and C is -9. And I'm going to ask you to solve this quadratic. Now, once again, I know I keep forgetting this step, but whenever you're trying to solve a quadratic, you're supposed to throw away the y and put it equal to 0. I want everyone to solve this quadratic, and you're going to run into a problem. If this question goes smooth, you're doing it wrong. You're supposed to end up with a problem. And I want you all to try to identify the problem when you see it. So you all were asked to work this out, and I said that you would run into an error. How much of you all ended up with a minus value, a negative value underneath the square root sign? Well, which is what it's supposed to happen, right? Because B is negative, so you get minus -4. Then you have -4 squared minus 4 by -2 by -9. I know this looks complicated, but remember, if you just type it in on your calculator, the calculator will do all the hard work for you. Just to clarify, was the number underneath the square root sign, the discriminant, was it -56? I'm just double checking it on my calculator. Yes, it was -56. Now, if you attempt to square root the -56, right, you're going to realize that you cannot square root what? -56, right? So when you try to square root it, you're going to get what on your calculator? You are going to get an error, which means that solving this is impossible. Well, let's get in, let's try to investigate this a little bit better. Remember, whenever you are solving a quadratic, you are really trying to figure out where it cuts the x-axis, right? I think everyone could agree with that. You're trying to figure out where it cuts the x-axis. Now, remember, I would have used a computer program to draw the graph in the first place. Does this graph, look at it, Does it cut the x-axis at any points? Look at it carefully. It does not, okay? So whenever you are attempting to solve a quadratic and you get an error and you know you do everything correct, that means if you attempt to draw the graph on graph paper, it will never, ever, ever cut the x-axis at any point in time, right? So I just wanted to be able to interpret what an error means when you're trying to solve a quadratic. But here's the thing, right? Whether the graph cuts the x-axis or not, doesn't this graph still have a maximum point? It still has a maximum point. Not having solutions doesn't exclude it from having a maximum or a minimum point. It's still possible. Do you all think you all can estimate by just looking at the graph? Let me zoom in again as usual. I want you all to estimate what the x and y values are. What does it look like? Okay. And it is a maximum graph. Let's put MAX, right? And remember, maximum point is also called a turning point. A lot of people are saying it's -1. That looks fairly accurate. That's the x value. And the y value looks, well, remember, if it's -5, -6, -7, -8, -9, -10. This looking like what? -7. But don't get me wrong. It could be what? -7.1. It could be -7.2. Who knows? I want you all to verify it by calculations. So go back to the same formulas. Remember these two formulas? Minus b divided by 2a. And to get the y coordinate, it's this formula. Get in the habit of always writing the formula before you use it. It will do two things for you. The examiner will give you marks for it. And second, it will help you memorize it. Right? So do the calculations and verify if it's actually -1 and -7, please. This graph is a sad face, and you will notice that the a value is -2. So the a value today is negative, right? Sorry. And whenever the a value is negative, we're supposed to get a sad face, a maximum shape. So my graph does match up to the equation. All right, so now I'm going to kind of it's not a test, right? But just quickly refresh my memory. For the homework, I know you all had to do quadratic simultaneous equations, right? Did you all have to do the videos on expanding brackets, like be able to expand brackets quickly? I'm trying to figure out if that was piece of the homework last week. All right, okay, no problem. So the expansion of brackets was not on last week's homework, but it's a maths topic. I just want to make sure we're able to expand brackets carefully, which is what the next part here is about. I'm not going to spend too long on this. So we have to just refresh your memory on how to expand brackets, a Form 3 topic. I want everyone to take down this question quickly, and we're just going to quickly get rid of those brackets. Keep in mind, if you multiply two x's, you will get x squared. X multiplied by x is x squared. So how do you multiply two pairs of brackets? The easiest way, I know there are a lot of different ways, different teachers have different methods. What you need to do is take the first bracket. Now today, in my first bracket, I have 2x plus 1. What we're going to do is take this bracket and multiply by the first item in the other bracket, which is x. Then we are going to take the same value again and then multiply by -4. Let me show you what that means. So we're going to take the 2x and multiply by x. So take the x, which is this value, and we multiply it by the first brackets. Then we take the minus 4, make sure I put the sign, and multiply it back by the first brackets. So in other words, this item here gets multiplied twice. First by the x and then by the minus 4. And we just have to take our time now and just expand each bracket. X by 2x is 2x squared. You notice x by x is x squared. X by 1 is x, right? Remember, this is not positive 4. This is minus 4. Signs are very important. Minus 4 by 2x is minus 8x. There's no squared here because he is regular boron x and he has no x. And minus 4 multiplied by positive 1 is minus 4. We cannot leave our answer like this. It's best that we do what? Simplify it. You notice the two middle terms here. Both of them have regular boron x. And x is the same thing as 1x. So our final answer will be 1x minus 8x is minus 7x, and then you have minus 4. You're not going to be able to simplify that anymore because you might be thinking x squared and x, we could squish them together to get one answer. But x squared is totally, totally different to x. Right? Take down this one, and I want everyone to try the second one for me. Just as a little practice, we'll just do 2 more examples. Let me see how much we have. Right. Take the 2x and multiply it by the first bracket. So 2x, and we multiply it by 2 minus 3x. Then take the 5, well, here's positive 5. Make sure and write the sign. And multiply it back by the first bracket. Okay? Take your time now. I'm going to keep reminding you because it's easy to forget. When you multiply 2 x's, you get x squared. All right, let's see if you have this correct here. You will get 4x here because 2x by 2 is 4x. 2x by minus 3x is minus 6x squared. 5 by 2 is 10, and 5 by minus 3x is minus 15x. So you just have to add up these similar items. You see how he has an x and he does not have an x? You could probably squish them together. Whenever you're stating your final answer, I just like my x squareds to come first, my x's to come second, and everything else to come last. Obviously, you don't have to do it like that. If you want to put the x's alone first, if you want to put like the constants first, it's really up to you. But I'm going to put my x squared first. So minus 6x squared, he has no friends, so we're going to put him first. 4x minus 15x is minus 11x. And then the 10 has no friends, so he goes last. I like my x squared to come first, my x's in the middle, and everything without x last. How much of you all had this final answer? Obviously, if you have it mixed up, it's still correct. If you put the 10 first, it's still correct. Take down the answer, and we're just going to do one more quickly. To do this question, don't let this 2 bug you. It have about 3 different ways to do this question, but here's my advice. You see this part first, the 2 brackets, work that out first. Work it like these regular boring questions. So you expand the 2 brackets, simplify it as much as possible. Most likely you're going to end up with 1, 2, 3 answers. Whenever you are finished, I want you to multiply all 3 answers by what? 2. And then you are finished. Okay? So it's almost the same procedure, but you're saving that 2 on the outside for last. Give it a shot first. Do the rectangle first. Let's see what we get for the rectangle at least. We're going to take the 2x and multiply it by x minus 3, and then take the minus 1 and multiply by the x minus 3 again. 2x by x is 2x squared. 2x by minus 3 is minus 6x. Minus 1 by x is minus 1x. I don't have to put the 1 if I don't want to. Minus 1 by minus 3 is positive 3. I suspect a few people forgot the positive 3 there based on the answers they sent. Right? Remember, a minus multiplied by next minus is a positive. So here we have 2x squared. The middle, we can squish them together. If I have minus 6 and then I minus 1, I'm going to have minus 7x. And then the plus 3 here. But we are not done. Remember, we have this annoying 2 waiting on the outside. So this final answer, when we are finished, everyone gets multiplied by this 2 who's waiting. Only when we do that, then we're finished. 2 by 2x squared is 4x squared. 2 by minus 7x is minus 14x. And 2 by 3 is 6. This is your final answer. A lot of people did get it correct. I had a few mistakes along the way, but look through back to working, see where you made the error, and please let me know that it has been rectified. Yeah. All right, so we're not going to do these right now. I'm more interested in solving quadratic simultaneous equations. Okay, somebody just wants me to scroll back up quickly. Just going to leave it here for 5 seconds, right? All right, so let's move on now. On the board here, well, screen, I keep saying board, was really screen. It's a pair of quadratic simultaneous equations. One is a quadratic, one is linear. Your job is to solve for x and to solve for y. Now, because it's a quad, one of them is a kind of quadratic. It has x squared and whatnot in it. You're supposed to get 4 answers. 2 values for x and 2 values for y. Begin and send your answers. I'm going to time you. In the exam, you're only going to have about between 5 to 7 minutes to get out a question like this. I just want to make sure that we're on the right track. Remember, we always choose the easier equation. Well, the easier equation here is obviously equation 1. So we choose equation 1. So that's 2x plus y. When we choose equation 1, we either have to make x the subject or y the subject. Which one is easier to make the subject today, x or y? It's definitely going to be y. To make y the subject, all you have to do is throw across 2x, and it becomes minus 2x, and this becomes equation 3. All right? Just give you this last piece of push forward. You're going to put equation 3 into the one you did not use as yet, which is equation 2. So when you go to equation 2, wherever you see the letter y, throw it away and put what in its place? 5 minus 2x. So take it up to there, right? Right, so I just want to make sure that we have this correct now. When we put equation 3 into 2, it should look something like this. 2x squared plus y squared, but we don't want that y. So we throw away that y. And in its place, we put in brackets 5 minus 2x, close the brackets. Don't forget to square it, and it's equal to 11. Now you have to try your best to simplify this. Just in case you forfeit, but this would have been in the homework, right? 5 minus 2x does not mean you square the 5 and square the 2. It means it's 5 minus 2x multiplied by a next 5 minus 2x, which I showed you how to do just now. Okay. I'm going to try to simplify this scenario, but I have limited space here. So let me go to a blank worksheet. I know, try to simplify it over here first and then go back. So what I'm being asked to simplify is 2x squared plus 5 minus 2x multiplied by another 5 minus 2x. And I believe the whole thing was equal to 11. Now, when we simplify this, we're definitely going to get a quadratic. So let's see if we can see what this quadratic is. It's supposed to be 5 multiplied by 5 minus 2x, and then minus 2x multiplied back by the 5 minus 2x, and this is equal to 11. We're going to get 25 minus 10x minus 10x plus 4x squared is equal to 11. Be careful over here because you have minus 2x multiplied by another minus 2x. X by x is x squared. Let's try to simplify this. And since this is a quadratic, it might be a good idea to throw everybody on the same side because we're going to have to try to solve the quadratic. And whenever you're trying to solve a quadratic, you have to make sure one side is equal to 0. So let's see what we get when we simplify this. Let's add up all the x squareds. 2x squared plus 4x squared is 6x squared. Add up all the regular boring x's. Minus 10x minus another 10x is minus 20x. And if this positive 11 jumps across, we will get minus 11. 25 minus 11. Did anybody get this for the simplified version of the quadratic? It's positive 14 minus 6. How does that look? Looking correct so far? I mean, if you made a slight mistake, go back and check your working and it should be okay. And now what you need to do is solve this quadratic. Substituting the values, at least. This is A, this is B, this is C. B is minus 20, so I think 2 minus signs will touch here according to the formula. Minus 20, 4 by A by C. Right, so let's work out the discriminant and see what we get. For the discriminant, did we get 64? How much people can agree with that? So again, positive 20, because 2 minus signs touch, plus or minus, well, the square root of 64 is 8. And then we divide by what? 12, because 2 by 6 is 12. Please get your 2 answers. Now remember, when you solve this quadratic, our quadratic only has the letter x. So that means when we solve this particular quadratic, we're going to get 2 answers. Both answers are going to represent x. One is, a lot of people think because we're solving a quadratic, one answer has to be x and one answer has to be y. No. Since our quadratic has the letter x in it, when we solve for it, both answers are x, not y. Right, so let me see what we're going to get here. I think we're going to get some crazy reoccurring decimals, so I'm just going to leave it as a fraction. 20 plus 8, make sure that's in brackets, divided by 12. I think one of the first answers is 2 1/3, or some people might put it as an improper fraction, which I think is 7/3. Any one will do for the examiner. Right? But anytime you get a recurring decimal, put the fractions instead. The examiner will appreciate that. The other one is 20 minus 8 divided by, the other one is easy. I think we're getting 1. So the two values for x, just to clarify it, you can call one x1 and the other one x2. So it's easier to talk about it. I can say the value of x1 is 7 on 3 and the value of x2 is 1. Make sure you're seeing up to there. Right? And confirm when you finally see it on your calculator. So knowing the values of x, right? I'll just write it back here. So far, we got x to be 7 on 3 or 2 and 1/3. And the other value of x is 1. To get the value of y, to find the y values now, you can run back to any one of these equations, right? You can run back to equation 1, equation 2, equation 3. But which one did I advise to run back to? Well, which equation is the one we need to run back to? Advisably, if that's a real word. Anybody wants to tell me which one is the easiest one to run back to? Equation 3. You see, I always run back to equation 3 at the end of the question because y is already the subject. So to find the value of y, to find y1, we just have to go to this equation and replace the x with the first value of x, which is 7 on 3. Work that out and you'll get the first value of y. And to find the next value of y, you run back to the same equation and you replace the x with the other value of x. Work this out, you're finished. Work this out, you're finished. But almost finished. So that's one small thing you have to do after. To calculate the value of y, I could use the fractions button. 5 minus 2, open brackets, 7, and you use the ABC. You'll see the letter R up here. That means divided by 3. Close the brackets. And I get y1 to be 1/3. The other one, I don't need my calculator for that. 2 by 1 is 2. 5 minus 2 is 3. Now, you can't leave your answers scattered all over the place, right? You can't have the values of x on one side of your page and the values of y on the other side. You have to put your answers in coordinates form. Remember, a coordinate will have an x value and a corresponding y value. When x is 7 on 3, the corresponding y value is 1/3. And when x is 1, the value of y is 3. This is how you have to write it in the exam. For those who got those answers before me, congrats. For those who were a little bit lost, but eventually, you figured out your way through, congrats also. Right? Don't feel too bad if you got pieces wrong. If you got little bits and other pieces correct, still feel good about yourself. Right? First things first, I know some of you all may not have the links again. So let me go through what the school link. So some of you might be your first class today. So on the public chat, right? Don't send any messages for a little while. I'm sending back the school YouTube link on the school website. When you go to the school website, I already have it here. You obviously need to review the work that was done today, right? It's always important to go through back today's video, which I will upload in the summer recorded classes as usual. So when you go to summer recorded classes in the menu, scroll down. Today's what? Thursday. I have last week's work over here. And of course, I will put the link for today's one above. In preparation for next week, here's what you all need to do. And this is the most important part. Go to the AdMath classroom, scroll down, and you see the very, very first colorful button, remainder and factor theorem. You are to watch that entire video, not just watch it, pause it where you need to pause it. Rewind when you need to rewind it. You need to understand it, and you have to make proper notes. Obviously, once again, I will not be able to tell offhand that, hey, you didn't do my homework, or whether you did it perfectly or not. Just like the speech at the beginning of class. You're not doing it for me. You're not doing it for your parents. You're doing it for yourself. Don't cheat on yourself. If you know you have to do something properly to progress and to be on track next week, you need to do it. It's only one person is going to lose out if you don't give it your best, and that's you. All right? Just to summarize what that homework is, I have written it out for you guys here. So let me, you can take a screenshot of it here. Everything I just said is written down here. And of course, please feel free, if you have extra time, go through everything you want in the Admaths classroom. If you see another topic you want to revise, go ahead. Nobody is stopping you. The more you learn, the better. All right, and please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Already trying to reach 12,000. All right, guys, so take care, and I will see you all next week for Admaths, and some of you all have integrated science class tomorrow. Take care and all the best.